A 17-year-old girl named Cindy Paulson manages to escape from a man who has handcuffed her and is trying to load her onto a small private plane at an Anchorage airstrip in the middle of the night. She flags down a passing car, gets to the police, and tells them everything. She describes the man in detail, gives his name, and describes what he did to her in the basement of his home before trying to get her onto that plane. And the police basically don't believe her, because the man she's describing is the nice nobody in town who bakes donuts for everyone. You see, Robert Hansen owns a bakery in Anchorage, Alaska. He's small, softly spoken, wears thick glasses, and spends his weekends hunting in the wilderness. He's married with kids, well-liked in the community, and has even set a few local hunting records. He's the kind of guy you'd forget about 5 minutes after meeting him, which, as it turns out, is exactly what makes him so dangerous. Hansen grows up in Iowa and has a genuinely rough childhood. He's small, has really bad acne, and has a stutter that gets worse when he's nervous. So he gets absolutely destroyed by other kids and basically has no social life at all. The one place he feels comfortable is out in the woods by himself, hunting, and he spends hours out there just to get away from everyone. He has a terrible relationship with his dad on top of all that, and a string of failed relationships with women who reject him when he finally starts trying to date. By the time he's a young adult, he has a deep, festering resentment sitting inside him that he's very good at hiding. He moves to Anchorage in the late 1960s, remarries, opens a bakery, has kids, gets his pilot's license, and buys a small plane. From the outside, it looks like a total turnaround, like someone who has genuinely put his difficult past behind him and built something good. His neighbors like him. His customers like him. Nobody has any reason to look closer. But Anchorage in the 1970s is going through a massive change because the construction of the Trans-Alaska oil pipeline is bringing tens of thousands of workers into the city, and with them comes a huge transient population of people constantly moving in and out. Exotic dancers and sex workers flood into the area to make money off all those workers, and the city gets a whole seedy underbelly almost overnight. Hansen starts going to the strip clubs and back alleys, and he quickly works out something that allows him to operate for over a decade without being caught. Women in that world disappear all the time, and very few people come looking for them. His method is always the same. He approaches a woman, offers her money, and once she's in his car, he pulls a gun on her. He takes her back to his house and assaults her in the basement. And then he does something that is honestly hard to even process when you first hear it. He loads her into his small plane, flies out over the remote Alaskan wilderness, lands somewhere miles from any road or any person, and releases her into the trees. And then he hunts her. He has a Ruger Mini 14 rifle and a hunting knife, and he tracks his victims through the wilderness the same way he tracks any other animal. And he kills them out there and buries them in shallow graves scattered across a massive stretch of land so remote that some of those graves are never found. What makes this case even more disturbing is that some women do escape, and some of them go to the police and describe exactly what has happened to them and give Hansen's name. He's even brought in for questioning at one point, but his friends in the community vouch for him, and the women reporting him aren't believed, and he just keeps going. Women in vulnerable situations reporting a well-liked local businessman aren't getting the same attention as the businessman's friends who say he's a good guy, and Hansen understands that completely and uses it. Detective Glenn Flothe has been working through a pile of missing persons cases and starts noticing that several bodies turning up in the wilderness around Anchorage seem connected to the same person. He brings in FBI agent John Douglas, who at the time is one of the first people doing criminal profiling in the country. Douglas goes through the evidence and describes a suspect who is an experienced hunter, has access to a private aircraft, and has kept personal items from his victims as trophies. That profile points straight at Hansen, but getting a search warrant for such a well-regarded member of the community is still an uphill battle. What finally pushes it over the line is Cindy Paulson, who in 1983 manages to escape from Hansen when he has her handcuffed at an airstrip and is trying to get her onto his plane. She flags down a passing car, gets to police, describes everything in detail, and gives his name. Even then, there's pushback, but Flothe pushes harder, and they finally get the warrant. When investigators search Hansen's home, they find the rifle. In the attic, they find a stash of jewelry, trophies he's taken from different victims, and they're able to match specific pieces to specific missing women. And hidden behind the headboard of his bed, they find an aviation map of the area around Anchorage. It's covered in tiny X marks, 24 of them, each one a location out in the wilderness where he's left a body. When they sit Hansen down and start going through the evidence piece by piece, he tries at first to deny everything and deflect blame onto the women. But as each piece of evidence comes out, he starts to crumble, and eventually he confesses to the whole thing. He admits to killing 17 women and raping 30 more over a 12-year period. As part of his plea deal, he agrees to take investigators out to the wilderness and help them locate the graves, pointing out spots on the map from his plane. They recover 12 of the 17 bodies he confesses to. The others are never found. And given that there are 24 X marks on that map, and he only admits to 17 murders, a lot of people believe the real number is much higher than what he is ever held accountable for. In 1984, Hansen is sentenced to 461 years plus life in prison without parole. He dies in prison in 2014 at 75 years old. And one of his victims, found near a lake and known for decades only as Horseshoe Harriet because nobody can identify her, is finally identified in 2021 through genetic genealogy as 19-year-old Robin Pelkey. Her family has no idea what has happened to her for nearly 40 years before this. What do you think about Robert Hansen? Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe while you're there.